Alright, welcome to today's stream. So, it's been a little bit. We had this challenge for endless engines, and I've been reconfiguring a little bit about the project after working on this sprint and having some takeaways really on how my workflow is doing and also how I'm going about showing the process of developing the much larger piece of the puzzle here, or the whole puzzle, right? So, let's get right into it. We're going to be reviewing the mission that I made for endless engines, and this is actually just showing a bit more than that. It's the social media version that I made. There we go. So now that I'm looking at it here, and also I noticed once I edited the video and I put these two sort of intersections, the beginning and the closeout, the short animation for the video doesn't actually look bad at all, or it kind of like hides a lot of the imperfections that you'd be looking at if you were just looking at the animation. So, but a little step-by-step breakdown real quick. So we have the car move in, and all of that pretty fine. It's when it passes this car is obviously of much lower quality. So one thing I definitely underestimated in this whole process was how much modeling was going to take. And even if you use preloaded assets, etc., it takes a while to adapt those things to the model. So definitely in your battles, I noticed a lot of other entries, they focus their modeling time towards just the vehicle, whereas I focus my modeling time on the environment, right? That'll serve me better for my purposes and my project later on, but specifically for this challenge, having focused on just modeling the vehicle and then sourcing a much simpler background would have been a better strategy. The animation wasn't great right here. It was a bit choppy. I could have lengthened this little strip a bit longer. And one thing I didn't do, which I saw a lot of people doing, was I think there's a custom way to rig vehicles in Blender. So that'll be something that's specific to rigging, which I really haven't tapped at all into for Blender. So that'll be an interesting use case for that. This part over here, I wasn't entirely disappointed with. Especially the way it speeds up at the end. The audio really complemented that as well. I do still question the decision about the glowing fence. I think it kind of works. I'm not sure if it entirely does. But anywho, this is where we ended up at, the entry for endless engines. So now that we've seen that, we're going to take a little bit of a behind the scenes look at the process. So really the three files that put this all together. We have the 3D software here, which is Blender, and had all of these different elements built out in separate files first, which was a big win, I think, for making this all work together and be really, really heavy. We brought in the plugin Blender 5 to get all these buildings modeled out, and it was a good cheat to kind of add in a fence to block out the low amount of detail on the ground plane. Some more time could have been taken to, once these are kind of placed, almost even like keep them as just placeholders, but then individually go around and recolor or resize some of these. You do notice in the final render how everything's a bit too tame. The car is rigged through keyframes. So I actually used the original circle that was tracked here for the timing of the challenge. So it's sort of a placeholder circle. And I created my own duplicate of it with the same keyframes and parented the different portions of the car to it. So that means that basically the car would follow this new circle that I've created. And I just kind of had to play with the timing and the position a little bit of that. So we played through a little bit of the animation. We see one circle is kind of chasing another, or I kind of played it out as like a car trying to stabilize on the road as it comes in, as it passes another vehicle, and as it dodges the fence, and it always tries to like catch up to that other circle. That's kind of how the movement happens here. The other car actually doesn't start moving until mine catches up to it. It just seemed quicker to time it that way. So that right there, I would have given myself maybe a bit more breathing room to do that transition right here in 3D. But overall, the use of assets for the environment I think was pretty great. The lighting could have been done a bit better if I had been able to render out more frames throughout. So definitely the two areas I would have spent more time on would be rendering previews, getting those out for review and feedback, and modeling a very specific portion of the scene that's really the centerpiece or the highlight. And really the environments, unless the environment is the challenge, making the subject. I think my music might be a bit too loud. I'd set up a new system, or completely redid the system here, so I think hopefully that was the last thing I'll need to do. Alright, so that's where the 3D ended. There was some compositing, so just some color correction that I was doing here. This means that essentially every render that came out of here had a bit of Photoshop or photo editing done to it before it came out. Once all those frames left and made up a whole video sequence, I put that together in Photoshop. I'm not going to show you that though. I have another video where I went over that session. We're taking frames in Photoshop and making that a video. This time I'm just jumping in from After Effects. So in After Effects, once we had our clip in here, oh, this is Premiere. In After Effects, once we have our clip in here, essentially after the color correcting that was done in Blender, I had another look at it here and did a bit more color balance. I used Lumetri color, so color balance essentially setting brightness and darkness levels to highlight, midtones, and shadows. And then in Lumetri, we have all kinds of different changes here. So all that is available from the effects window in After Effects. And yeah, I mean, you get to curves, you get to some creative filters, you have your color wheels, basic correction tools, which is contrast, brightness, saturation, vignetting, all that stuff that you want, all in one place. And then I figured to kind of add a little bit of more ice to the foreground, I decided to add in a snow effect, which I think I could afford to make bigger, but it really adds quite a bit to the motion of the scene. And it didn't take me too much to dial that in. That was pretty okay. But it's great that it kind of uses the lighting that's already set up in the scene. It really blends in on its own, essentially. So that's really it where I took it in After Effects. It was really just adding in that dust particle and putting in some more color corrections. With that render out of After Effects, close that here. In Premiere, that's where I did the audio. So I'm missing the files that I added here in the beginning sequence and in the end sequence. That's a motion graphics template. I just kind of modified it to my own. I added those to the beginning and to the end here, and in between, sandwiched it in with the actual animation. And all these different layers that you're seeing here are sound effects. So we've got a baseline music for the entire thing, so that plays through the beginning of this sequence all the way through this end sequence, and then it sort of restarts pretty smoothly. But we got an effect for the car engine the entire time. We have the horn honking from the car we're passing. We have sort of like a swoosh sound, like the air getting compressed between the two cars as it passes each other. And then another swoosh sound here that gets compressed when dodging the fence. And then we have engine getting louder, or like getting lower and then getting louder to speed away. And then it's gone, it goes quiet. So that's essentially the full process for getting to that final video. Now, oops, just to put that up as we review what we're going to get into next. Basically, looking at this and how can I make this slightly better, just by doing something real simple right now. Well, honestly, I thought there was a lot. I thought I had to really fix the lighting, but now that I see it sort of like color edited and everything else, you know, with the two sequences in front and behind it, it kind of fits an overall vibe, um, which is interesting because a lot of these other competition entries that I've seen from other people, I was, you know, I wasn't feeling like this really stood up to what I was seeing out there, and I don't think it does, but the gap closes a lot for me when I see it compiled with these other elements I chose to add in. Even just this, having something in the beginning and at the end and have this be just a quick flash in the middle, kind of have this which fits the vibe, it elevates the whole thing, right? Which is not a fair, or you know, I haven't seen too many other people who remotely, I mean, there's probably some out there, but all I've seen is the 4 seconds from people. 4 seconds, and then we see kind of like a behind the scene process to the whole thing, but you don't see it with a title sequence, or you don't generally see it with some other element. In any case, now with the Blender file open and being able to get out a frame, I think if I took a good look at this frame right here, and I decided to switch out the fence for something else, that would really improve the scene. Because the fence was a great trick to hide the foreground, sort of like not really show that the street between, or the ground level between the street and the buildings isn't really developed. So it kind of closes that gap and really brings in more focus to the subject. And I think it works here, but when we close in here, I almost would prefer to see it transform to something else, be something else. And perhaps since I took I had it originally bursting through at this moment right here where the gate ends, there was like a little hut with one of those levers that move up and down. So I got rid of that, and it's just a closed off fence really. So I'm wondering if I could maybe put a train station here or something, like a bus station. And like maybe this is elevated and then there's some, it changes the lighting, right? Maybe we put this tower way out here in the background what we see initially, and then it's still in frame in the background, but then rather than having it on the right and not really seeing it, seeing the one unique building in the whole scene just at the very end, have it more towards the beginning and put some sort of bus station or some sort of urban condition here. I was thinking a building originally, but I think some sort of public transit station right next to the highway and right here in front can be interesting to have like a different lighting condition that we kind of put the car through right here. Alright, so with that we can go ahead and get started kind of doing some of those edits in Blender. I think the lowest hanging fruit is going to be moving that unique building. I even think it's just the light bar that I have to move onto a copy of itself. So that'll be easy. And how can I get a bus station there? I'm going to look for a 3D model or some sort of like free 3D model perhaps I could get from Blender Kit. Drop that in right in there. Just replace that portion of the fence with it. We'll see what a few frames out of that sequence looks like once we kind of do those. So we'll save a new iteration. Of course, this would have been good to do before the deadline, but again, knowing where I would spend my time now, of course, hindsight's 2020, right? If you'd like to leave any comments, questions, if you'd like to ask any questions, feel free to do so in the comments at any time. We'll get rid of those fences. I'll keep that row of blocks now. I didn't mean to take out the second. Have it how much longer than I thought. There we go. So we'll grab this light strip. Yep, as I thought, it's not tied to that building, so I can just move that back. And this really tall building next to this horizontal piece could be interesting. Like it's cut off right here. It also allows me to make, I need to make it bigger because it's further away. And I kind of like extending it a bit past the building. Let's see what that looks like in frame. Not touching the building, it seemed like it was, but there you go. And a bit more angle there. Okay. There we are. So that looks pretty good from right here. I'm even gonna need a timeline, so I have one right here. Plus to make it larger. If I scroll back through, we get sort of a glimpse of it right there. And as we move away, we see it fully for about half the second portion of the animation, which is pretty good. So now in order to bring a bus station or some sort of urban condition, I want to make this file much lighter. So I'm going to go into a top view here, the whole map of the sequence, and I'm going to go ahead and start hiding out some elements. Not too concerned with not being able to see them or not having them, not knowing through the collections or layers what's hidden, because I already know my settings and my layer organization. Like I'm already pretty confident on where things are, and knowing that even though I hide them here, they'll still show up in the final render. And you can always hit Alt-H, bring back everything. So these light fixtures are probably taking a lot too. Alright, so that's really it. I kept these bunkers here, so I have the exact same timing for the animation. So the bus station has to extend about this long, whatever that ends up looking like, whatever feature that ends up looking like. So we can do low-hanging fruit, go into Blender Kit, and go to Models, and we'll search. Let's see if we have something like a bus station. I did notice Blender Kit is on sale. I got a notification of that today, so I might just end up pulling the trigger. I think I might as well just put a building. Nothing much of bus stations. If I search for a building, I think it's more unique or similar to what's behind. Oh. This could fit. I just added some wires and light bars to it real quick. If you have any suggestions there in the comments of what I could add here instead of a bus station, or what kind of building I could add, or if you have any questions in general, you're going to feel free. Drop me a line. That's interesting. Although I think I've used this model before. Shout out Adam Kranick. And I do know that it's a photo on a model, on a low poly model, which is great for background, but this is actually in the foreground. And I'm gonna want it to look pretty good. So I'm gonna search for city now. Instead of building, I can get some city element. Perhaps, oh, I could go into my assets. So I'll just enlarge this over to be an asset editor or as a browser. See what kind of models do I have around here that I can apply. So this is kind of cool, like these arches. Always kind of like that could be interesting. I could always, I could combine those arches with one of those buildings I took away. So if I lay one of those on their side, I can kind of make a second level to that first level of arches and still have a relationship between what's in the background and the foreground. Kind of like kit bash these two together. So we'll find a building here for Y, green, and expand it. I'm pretty sure I have run into this before. Here are my cubes. All right, there's a building. Can bring that over. My towers. Do. Light it close. Oops. Just gonna use that top row of arches right there. Move a bit forward through the animation. And I mean, it's even interesting to see it sideways like that, but a bit much. We'll go ahead and straighten that out. Okay. So I don't want to completely hide the background, so maybe I can have this be something like that if I were to combine it then with these, because these have a ground. Oh, that might happen. Crashed. So let's see how far ago we got an autosave on it. Five minutes ago, that might be too long ago. I think that's gonna work out. Okay, let's bring back one of these towers. I like that one better, it's smaller. And I just kind of plugged it. Grounded, it's fine. Okay. There we go. Look at it from the camera view. Okay. Now we'll drop in some of those assets. We can hide the car. Let's take the car and go ahead and hide that, hide its wheels, all that stuff is separate. We'll go ahead and hide the other car. We'll hide these street signs. Really getting slim here so we don't crash again. I do know that for some reason I think these streets, just for texture reasons, I had to add a lot of faces to them. Go ahead and hide the street. We just know we want to add this right in between these barriers. So camera view. I'll put it right there to cap the fence. And we can start adding, well, we want it to start where the fence starts. Go back a little bit. Okay, now let's save and we'll get ourselves an asset browser and drop in some of those foreground elements. Let's see. Asset browser. Go. Rotate that. Have it punch out the front. Cool. So actually what I can do is I can bury, or I can have that pipe right on the ground. You won't really be able to. That's fine. And we'll just bring this doorway front. It's gonna go by so fast. Yeah, and you can't even see the pipe. Let's just hide it. That's fine. Okay, and we'll hide a bit of what's inside of there. We'll bring over. Then we have, what is this? That went really far away for no reason. Try that again. Right? See if I'm doing this right. Okay. There that is. That looks to be... Oh, interesting. Let's see, I can't edit it because it is linked, so see if I can't use this while hiding that giant cube it came with. We do have some more space to get through here. We can add this building in as like a, or this thing as like a corner condition. There we go. Okay. Move this out of the way now. Now that we know kind of where we're going to, the fence can end there. And we can now bring this through. Copies. And I don't think I want to keep the fence on this side either. Actually, yeah, it'd be more interesting to have more building down here. So I'm actually going to also bring into the foreground some of those other buildings we had, which aren't these towers. Why I should start properly labeling things. I'm just gonna go ahead and save and do an Alt H. There we go. There those things are. So I can bring in a copy. But actually trying to use, yeah, I'm trying to use these smaller builds. Maybe I want to keep a portion of the fence. So maybe I'll put this over to the end and we'll have one more copy. Oh, what I did there to make that small. Or I selected a small building. Actually, yes. Move that down and over. Okay. So from camera, that looks cool. I think maybe I'm hiding a bit too much. But ending on that corner right there is going to be pretty interesting. And then some more fence. So it's almost like passing an entry point to this blocked off portion of the city. Okay. So what do these look like now? Is the real question. So I'm gonna have to start hiding a few things again. Oh, we don't need to go into two screens for that. I do want to keep a few of these things around so I know what to make this look like. Let's see, really what I could do is, if I focus in on this one, how can I make this look like the piece behind it? Okay. Oh, I know why it looks like that. Oh no. Well, we're gonna add a photo. So let's see if we can't do this. We're gonna use an AI through Discord. Here. I'm gonna go ahead and use Blue Willow that I've been using. We're gonna go ahead and create a arc freeway cyberpunk front view nighttime. Alright, let's see what we get back. In the meantime, what I could do is add a couple surface lights over here, glow lights, so coming from this doorway. So kind of make it a little bit ominous. So if I were to add, say, like point lights right here. I do want to see the lights, but I'm gonna have to hide some. I'm gonna need to make this blend with the immediate geometry, which is the containers, these sort of tower looking things. Hide the car again. And some of the street, and we can do without the fences. Okay. Decrease the quality of the render. There's a lot going on here, and we'll hit render. I'm gonna make sure we have our denoise turned on. It doesn't have to be a sample 1, we can turn that to sample 10. Alright. We got some rust, we got some lights going on. So let's turn this point light and we can see how this looks from the camera. Everything is based on the camera. And turn this into maybe not a blue light, but a purple light or a red light. Try it, like a reddish purple. Yeah. I'm gonna keep the frame over here handy the entire time. Actually, I'm not gonna worry about taking in any more assets. I might need to do shading, but I'll go into the shade editor for that. So we're gonna make one giant screen and then split this up so that I can just get the camera view in here. In rendered mode. And I can mess around with my light up here. Alright, I think I'd even want to do something a bit more intense and soft at the same time. So I'll make it an area light. But what I mean by that is rather than having it come from one space, I'm going to have just the glow come through from the whole doorway, but make it a bit softer. So I'll make this light and then I'll make the size of the light larger, so that it comes through the entire doorway. But then I'll make this much less intense than what I had it previous. And a bit more than that. Okay, so that's one light. Let's see if our AI is set. Oh my goodness, my whole prompt didn't go through. So what I can do actually is just start using the same materials I'm using over here. Let's see, we have Rusty and we have Tech Metal Glow. I feel like if I take the Tech Metal Glow, oh, I know where to get that from. That's Ducky 3D's material pack, which I have installed over here. So I can just go back to that material pack And let's go to where I think that came from, which was metal. Nope. Shout out to Ducky3D for his amazing material pack. It just quickly gets you started with anything. And, you know, I mean, right now I'm able to just kind of keep on theme using something out of here. So we have some hex UV, hex sci-fi stuff. I think if I remember correctly, this might have been actually from Blender Kit, but I do remember these hex materials. Let's try Blender Kit and let's do materials and let's do sci-fi. Let's just search for that. Or if you'd like to put in anything in the comments as a prompt, search over here, or a prompt that I could use with the AI to get something for this arch, go ahead and put something in the comments to test. I'm open here to trying something that you think might fit. Now that you've been seeing this for a little bit. Okay, so sometimes this happens. Blender Kit plugin just kind of glitches out and you have to search section and get back to it. If I turn off my rendering, there we go. Sci-fi. This looks promising. Okay. I mean, it's not loading the large preview, but I'm kind of seeing what's going on here. We have a lot of displacement, so like you see there, this would actually fit pretty darn well. We add some glow to that. So there's some of these that look very similar that might have some glow to them. Or I see this one is kind of container-like. This one's blue and purple already. I'm gonna go for this one here, because it seems like it'll already have even colors that I'll be mostly happy with. Okay. Rendering the wrong side, but that's alright. I kind of want to get a good look at this material. Something must have happened because this is running much slower than it was. Wonder if it's the Blender key. Perhaps we can now hide this thing. No, it's probably not good to hide the element that's immediately behind it, but I want to just get a good look at what we're working. Okay, it seems like we need to do a cube projection. So with U, there we go. With by tabbing into it and hitting A to select all the faces and then U to unwrap, I was hoping I'd be getting a better result here on how the texture is mapping onto the surface, but not getting accurate result, and I think it might be because of how the model is built. Yep, you see there now that it's finished. Let's bring in that denoiser much sooner. While render out. Yeah, so it seems like this material is just super tiny on this geometry. So we'll go into that material setting, and we'll have to do so through the shader editor. So we'll go over to shading. And we gotta look for our object here. There we go. Alright, we're loading up our materials right now. There we go. And this is the one we're actually looking at. Take a look at how this is mapped. So it's using the UV of the object. I'm going to try and go for, rather than having to mess with the UV for this, try to see if I can get away with using a different input, such as generated or object. And if I really need to, I might have to mess with some of the modifiers that we have set for the object. So generated is still calculating. Okay. There we go. Alright. That looks more workable. So it's applied all over the surface. Generated worked. We can go back to the material sizing. So right here for the mapping on texture coordinate, go over here to scale. You can add a value, number, and then to scale we can then, if we want to make it, let's see, we had it set to 1, set it to 2, it looks a bit smaller. If we set it to 0.1, it looks much larger. Go with something like 0.3, pretty good. Doesn't look like it's entirely applying correctly, so let's give it one more shot at a different one. Give with object. Any better? Nope. Camera. Similar, but no. Or yes? I don't hate it. Let's save. And make it larger again. So we'll go up to 1 now. Nope, smaller. 0.1, 0.00, 0.05, 3, 0.06. Sure. And now we can bring back everything. Hopefully this doesn't crash right now. Loading up our textures. Okay. Okay. Hopefully will not crash. Brianna Del Valle, actually, Jay, question. How do you know exactly what words to prompt, or is it more of trial and error till you get the result you like? So, it's more of, there's kind of like a science to AI prompts. So, it's a little interesting. You kind of start off with a subject, or at least like the way I've seen it done, and there might be other ways. But you start off with a subject, and you basically list out everything you want the subject to be doing, and you want to be as vague as possible for the example. That's kind of how I've seen it work. Although Midjourney 5 now, which is different, apparently does a lot more conversation with you like ChatGPT does. So that's interesting, that you could kind of have that new way of input for image AI generation as you do with text prompts, with text generation. So it might be changing a little bit on how you do prompts, but typically, I mean, you want to include as much detail on the subject as possible and hit kind of different markers to direct the AI. So you can talk about what you want for your subject, what style you want it in, what color, what kind of lighting. Does it look like a painting? Does it look like a photo? What category does it fall under? That sort of thing. Sorry I cast your question a bit late there, but hopefully I answered that question properly. A big thing to do also is, since these AIs work on Discords, there's a lot of people on there posting what their prompts are and how they structure their prompts. So you could always look at that for consideration or inspiration, and like how they format things, you know. Okay, so I'm going to copy this material over to all of these, and I'm going to tweak the color slightly on this material. go ahead and select it. Over here, rather look through this node setup. We'll do looking for the color here. Should be getting closer to the shader. There we are. So there's that purple that we're getting there, and there's that blue that we have. So I want to switch off. Maybe instead of constant, what happens if I place it linear? If there's a gradient, yeah, sort of like that better. I'm also going to add, what are we plugging in here? A Voronoi texture. I'm going to add an additional texture here. Will be a noise texture. And I'm only going to do that to the color channel, because that kind of add imperfections of color over the surface. Here. If I click here, there we go, there we see the noise. Or there we see the whole effect, really. If I unplug the, oh, that shouldn't be in vector. There you go. So there we are. Now we see the noise showing up. So it's these kind of like manchas. It's these smudges, right? It's sort of like if we were to look at this on its own, unplug the previous, right? You kind of see those smudges there. So that's gonna just go ahead, like, actually as it is, I don't need to plug anything into it. I can just plug this through, then we can see what the final result is and put it onto the color. Then we'll tweak the colors here so that we can get not this, we'll go more saturated background, but we can add a bit of a bluish tint to it. There we go. Looking at this from the street side, I want to kind of add more pipes to hide where this meets, so it's not so obvious that these two are clipped. I'm gonna hit Shift right click right here to add in a cylinder. Shift A, cylinder. Have that intersect right there. Or sit behind it. Fine. And we can apply that rust material because it should just be in our list of materials. If I search rusty, there we go. And Control A to apply all transforms to that cylinder so the material applies properly to the new shape of the cylinder. Okay. And we can actually add quite a few of these copied around. Got that one there. Size, putting it next to the other one. Get it to move over. I'm gonna go into solid view here. Here we are. Alt D, Y, create an instance. Alt D, Y. There it is. Moving really fast. Okay. So we have that right next to that arch. Feel free to ask a question at any time in the chat, by the way. Sorry I caught your question there late, Brianna, but if you came back, basically the answer is for AI image prompts is you just kind of have to start learning the AI a little bit. ChatGTP, or not ChatGTP, Midjourney 5 just change the way that you sort of introduce prompts. you kind of, it's more like ChatGTP now, the way you talk to it. So I've also noticed this other one, Blue Willow, that I've been using is a bit different from Midjourney. You have to be a bit more specific, and whereas in Midjourney you could be really vague or almost poetic, you'll get something back. I'm gonna see if I can move this layout easy. I know it's gonna start rendering, but I also want to see where I'm at with these pipes. And I'm gonna start rendering out a frame pretty soon. If I think I can get one of these images to look right with the new additions in that new segment, I'm gonna do proof of concept by rendering out a frame. We'll call it there for today. I'll have the animation run overnight, and we'll see how that plays in video. At this point, I mean, the competition's over. The middle I made was this one here. And right now I'm just trying to see if I can quickly correct for the things that I think were wrong or that could have been done better. Besides the animation, clearly the animation there could have been improved, but I wasn't going to do that in this live stream because that would take me not a little bit of time, but it's just animation for vehicles. I've noticed anything having to do with a vehicle is its own subject, and I just need to dive in deep for what that is. So thanks, Brianna, appreciate that. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for asking a question. You can go ahead and ask anything else if you like. I'm going to do Q&A now as I get this render out because there's nothing much else to do, and I need to restart Blender anyhow because I've run out of memory. But thanks for tuning in. Not saying goodbye quite yet. I am doing a render out here, but if there any more input off of YouTube or LinkedIn, I know we're coming in from both. So we had our file here. Yeah, sometimes if doing a lot of manipulation and adding textures and your computer is kind of saving all these textures that are being used and all these preview modes inside of Blender, they'll kind of run out of memory. At least like these streams I run off my laptop and it does great, but then when I transfer to the desktop it just a different situation. Okay, so we have a view right here, so we should be able to see that tower in the background. Or is it hidden already? Or we're too far out to see timeline? And even there, whoever's hanging out still for this final render, you also want to drop an idea or something that you'd like to see based on what you're seeing here for a future stream. Yeah, I also welcome that. I have a few planned out, but always looking to see what it is that actually it's been big on me lately to ask a lot of questions from the audience of what they'd like to be seeing when it has to do with digital design, 3D tools, when it has to do with the workflow too, so going from 3D to 2D, sketching, doing concept design, do a little bit of all that full design process. And we get into the unknown, such as a vehicle race challenge. This sign is now clipping with the building, but I'm not going to worry about that. It goes by much too fast. So we do see the building in the background. I don't think I want that sign in full view. I'm going to judge it just on this first piece, because we get a little bit of everything. We get the sign over here on the street, we get the glow of the fence in the background, we get this middle tier building, we get this tower in the back with the red, and then we have all this foreground. I wish I had a frame in between these two, but I don't. That's how fast it goes by. So we'll go ahead and hit this one. Save that. We have our light here. Let's see if I can't handle a preview render before hitting render. Alright. Looks like we might be able to get something before we hit render a final image for the day. And this concludes the Endless Engines challenge for me. I mean, the competition ended last week, but this is where it concludes in terms of content. So we got the animation out, we got the behind the scenes, and now we have the critique and review what I've learned, what I do differently in the future. So, whole thing. Okay, I do think there is one light in this scene that's not meant to be here. I confirm that. Oh, it's because I'm searching. This is why everything's plugged in. Okay, so we do have an, yeah, I do want that area light. Where else do we have a light? Got a light here. This. So we can find out what anything is by hitting period on the number pad. We have something selected. And I think I probably should have done that outside of render mode because I just snapped to a light that I don't know where it is. There we go. Okay, this light is just kind of hanging out over here on its own. Not helpful, but not the one I'm looking for. So I got a bunch of lights here, but all that are street lights. I wonder if my compositing levels this out. So if I go back to my preview, the rendered mode, I do remember the original render straight out of the software to be very, very light. I think the compositor actually darkened a lot of it. And the entire process, I think I just kept darkening it. So we're uploading the mesh here, updating the mesh. I swear it happens to me every time where I'm gonna close out these streams and I want to get out this last frame, but I just know something is off. And I know it's not supposed to be this bright. The sky is dull. And there is a sun, but it's disabled in render. Yep, so I should have just trusted my gut from the beginning. I had everything set up as I needed. This is how it'll come out, which is fantastic. The darkness really helps the scene. So we're gonna go ahead and push this out. I do think it's better. I am curious what it's gonna look like as a whole sequence. Let's go back to that frame and let's render it out. So right here, we're gonna save it. We're gonna go to 100 and we're gonna render. You stuck with me with all that. I mean, a lot of it is I've already explained before. It was done in the previous Endless Engines challenge where I did a final polish before I submitted. I actually ended up doing quite a bit of polish and editing after that, but it's more on the After Effects and Premiere side. And then here again, after the competitions ended, outside of the time crunch, and after seeing all the winning submittals, yeah, these are just some things I noticed about mine that could be improved in 1 hour time. We kind of went through these and just kind of proof of concept that this idea works a little bit better. And kind of cool that I was able to use the background elements as foreground elements, right? So I was able to sort of double cash in on that effort and create that that really dense urban environment feeling. What's coming up next? We're gonna be tomorrow. I'm gonna post about this, but it'll be an OSM. Oh, we ran out of memory again. I have to run this on my desktop. But just to finish that thought, tomorrow we're going to be running Blender OSM plugin, which allows us to download entire Google Earth and city maps into Blender, and it's really, really useful for architectural diagrams. Very popular architectural style diagram taught by many people out there, all inspired. Really, I mean, it's kind of like a comic bookish style of drawing, but it almost directly references Bjarke Ingels or big architects, their style for their diagrams, which a lot of firms have adopted over the years. And whatever, that already took inspiration from many others, but it's this clean diagram feel, which we'll be able to do at a city scale, and we'll do some illustrated diagrams out of Blender, kind of show how you do like a comic book type render straight out of Blender. And with that, my friends, I will leave you till the next time. I need to restart my computer and get this animation running overnight. Thanks for sticking with, and I'll post the variation once it's finished tomorrow. So, see you on the next one.